I'd like to have the Park Forest Historical Society board members who are in here stand. We've got several standing in the lobby working on things, but I guess we'll be here, but anyway, thank you to everyone for getting the event put together this year, to Jerry Schnee for our booklet design, to Reese Goodrich for the bouquet on stage, and to all for help with the reception. We all serve on the Hall of Fame committee. We thank Wendy Heiss of Wish Photography and Martin Sukar for taping today's ceremony, and Big Bobbers for our reception music. The Society is happy to announce that we have met the $5,000 challenge grant match from the Village of Park Forest. So thank you to all who contributed to the match through memberships, annual fund donations, purchases, and museum visits. And thank you to all who attended our 70th, 34th anniversary luncheon or contributed to it. We thank the Village of Park Forest, Village Manager Tom Mick, Mayor Ostenberg, and the Village Board for extending that opportunity to us, which helps us keep the museum open. And now, President Pro Tem May Brandon, would you please come up and give us a welcome?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really nice to see such a nice audience here. On behalf of Mayor Ostenberg and the Village Board of Trustees, I would like to welcome you to this, the 25th annual induction of Hall of Fame members. This is a very special activity as far as I'm concerned, because what it does is it recognizes those individuals who have contributed to the life of Park Forest over a period of time, over a span of years. And that's very important because those contributions are what makes Park Forest Park Forest. So I think it's really very important that we recognize and acknowledge all that they have given. Some people give and you never see them, but they give and they give and they give. And others may be out in the front. So it really doesn't matter, but the fact of it is that Park Forest is a village that was born and founded on volunteerism. And it's that volunteerism that has been very important over the 70 years of this village. So I think it's just fitting that we continue that aim and we continue to acknowledge people through this induction of the Hall of Fame. I don't know, I did see Trustee Therese Settles out in the audience. Do we have any other trustee members in the audience? But again, on behalf of Mayor Ostenberg and the Village Board, I welcome you and sit back and enjoy. You will really find it amazing some of the things that our inductees have accomplished over the years of time. Thank you very much.
Our Mistress of Ceremonies is once again Therese Goodrich, Hall of Fame, class of 1998. Help me welcome Therese, and I'll turn the program over to her.
Well, here we are again. And the rain hasn't come. It's not going to rain on our parade today, so I'm happy for that. You know that both Jane Nickel and May Brandon are also Hall of Fame members. And as I look out over the audience, I see many, many more who have been inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I thank you all for coming, because I think supporting the program is what keeps us going all the time. And if people who are here now, if you are a Hall of Fame inductee, why don't you stand so everybody can see who it is? Terry, so you see we have a wonderful because of all of these wonderful people. So let's get on with today's event. What I'm going to do is I will introduce the presenter, and then the presenter will introduce the nominee. The first presenter is Deputy Chief Brian Reisky.
Being promoted there. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good, very good. My name is Brian Reisky. I am the Deputy Chief of Support Services with Park Forest Police Department. It is my honor to introduce to you retired Chief of Police Clifford Buck. Cliff first came to the village in 1983 as a patrol officer for the Park Forest Police Department. He quickly established himself as having a proficiency for investigations and was assigned to the Northeastern Metropolitan Enforcement Group as an undercover narcotics agent. Cliff worked throughout the Chicago area working to combat drug crimes in that dangerous undercover capacity. Cliff spent the majority of his career in an investigative role and was responsible for helping solve homicides and major crimes in Park Forest for over 3 decades. His hard work and investigative success led to him advancing through the ranks, and he was promoted to Deputy Chief in 2004 and finally Chief of Police in 2011. Cliff's contributions to the safety and sense of community in Park Forest throughout his 32 years of police service are many, but it was in the Deputy Chief and Chief positions where he had the most wide-reaching impact on Park Forest. Cliff instituted the Bicycle Program, which stands for Bigger Involvement Concerning Young Children's Learning Experiences, whereby funds from drug asset forfeitures and vehicle seizures were used to donate new bicycles, helmets, and locks to every elementary school in Park Forest each month, which are raffled by the schools to support positive student behavior. The program helped build relationships between Park Forest schools and the police department and continues to this day. Cliff instituted a problem-oriented police program which connects individual officers to specific neighborhoods to serve as a liaison between the neighborhood and the police department and address quality of life issues. POP officers attend neighborhood meetings and interact with neighborhoods at the person-to-person level. Cliff spearheaded the renovation of the nearly 60-year-old police facility, thank you by that, converting a 6,500 square foot facility into nearly 23,000 square foot facility, and doing so virtually without cost to the taxpayers of the village of Park Forest by utilizing grants and out-of-the-box funding. Outside of the police department, Cliff was part of the 1997 Foundation Group of License for Life, a nonprofit organization which seeks to reduce alcohol-related crashes through high school education. Cliff has given over 600 presentations at Illinois high schools, judges conferences, local civic groups, and was a keynote speaker at the Illinois State Drivers Education Conference. He also served as their state director from 1997 through 2004. The most decorated officer in the history of Park Forest, you can ask him that. Cliff also received numerous awards from organizations outside the police department, to include Park Forest JC's Officer of the Year in 1994 and in 1999. The Illinois Associations of Chiefs of Police Outstanding Law Enforcement Officer in 1997, and Cook County Circuit Court Judges Communities Initiative Programs Award in 2001. He holds 65 departmental citations, 65. Including the Combat Star, which he was awarded after being shot in the line of duty in 1990. Now, I'm not too certain where that occurred. He doesn't talk about that often, but maybe he'll bring it up after his speech. He was also honored as Park Forest Officer of the Year in 1995 and again in 2000. Upon his retirement in 2015, Cliff had left a legacy of over 3 decades of service to the people of Park Forest that had impacts far beyond the police department with which he served. His impact upon the village of Park Forest and the legacy he left makes him worthy of the honor today of being inducted into the Park Forest Hall of Fame. Congratulations, boss, and I love you.
Good afternoon. not sure who Brian was talking about. But first of all, I'd like to thank current Chief of Police, Chris Medina, for nominating me to the Hall of Fame, and also the Deputy Chief Brian Reisky for introducing me and presenting me this afternoon. I'd also like to congratulate the other members of this year's Hall of Fame class and thank all of them for their contributions and accomplishments throughout the years of the citizens of Park Forest. Secondly, I'd like to thank Patty for putting up with all the craziness over the years, and all our friends who took time out of their busy schedules to be here this afternoon. But who are we kidding? Most of them are retired and nothing else going on. Besides, I lied and told them the Kiwanis Club was giving free pancakes after the gathering. I'll be brief, because Chuck Sabey said he needed about 35 minutes. And he had a few things he needed to air out. 70 years ago next month, the village passed an ordinance approving the forming of a police department. The year was 1949, and the man given the task was Dave Wilson, who became the first director, a rank that was later changed to police chief. He interviewed and hired the first 4 Park Forest police officers, and the department was formed. A couple years later, I believe it was in the early 50s, Bob Mayama, John Williams, John Lancaster, Mike McNamara were hired. Maybe it was the late 50s. That joke should have went over much better. Think about it. I mean, they were here for 70 years already. They're all in the audience tonight. Many, many, many years later, I was hired. I graduated the academy in the afternoon and had to be at work at midnight for my first shift. It virtually seems like that was only a few years ago, but 36 years have passed, and I spent 32 of those years as a member of a very elite police department, and I spent the last 4 years trying to figure out how those 32 years went so quickly. I've been extremely fortunate to have worked with an unbelievable number of great people throughout those years, both on the police and the village hall side. Some of them were here today, and I thank them for having faith in me to lead. But I knew then what I still know now. While I was appointed first as deputy chief and then later as the chief of police, I was only the caretaker of the department for that period of time. The same as the others who have come before me, and the same as those who have come since, and the same as those who will come down the road. It was my job to make sure that we moved ahead, that we were better after I left than we were before I started. The same as those before me. It was and is our jobs to make sure that the men and women of the Park Forest Police Department have everything they need: equipment, training, education, good pay and benefits to do their jobs to the best of their ability, and that the job is to proudly serve the citizens of Park Forest, a motto that is worn on their sleeves. Hundreds of men and women have worked for the police department in the last 70 years, and hundreds more will work in the next 70 years. There was a quote from Edmund Burke that I am fond of, and I had proudly displayed in the police department when I was there. And it states, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." I am very honored and humbled to be inducted into the Park Forest Hall of Fame, and I accept it on behalf of all of us who for the last 70 years have been proud to serve and who chose not to stand by and do nothing. Thank you.
The next person as a presenter is also a Hall of Fame member, Ms. Myrtle Martin.
Good afternoon. I have known Vivian for over 50 years, and I must say that she is the most polite, courteous, considerate, and gracious person I have ever known. Now I'll read more about Vivian. In every organization, there is a volunteer who does not seek the spotlight or need accolades. That person is one who gets things done, who is always there when needed, and who works for as long as it takes to get the job done. In Park Forest, that person is Vivian Purnell. And for years, Park Forest organizations have benefited from her calm demeanor, her organization skills, her willing hands, her thorough reports, and detailed follow-through. Vivian moved to Park Forest in 1963, among the first few African-American families to make Park Forest home. Vivian joined Hope Lutheran Church when she moved to Park Forest. Among her many volunteer activities, she was chairman of the Altar Guild, was in the choir, president of the Dorcas Society, publicity chairperson, and Sunday school secretary. Currently, she is a member of St. Paul Lutheran Church, where she is co-chairperson of the Altar Guild and Funeral Luncheon Committee, as well as several other committees. Vivian has been a member of the Park Forest Historical Society, the Professional Advisory Committee for Nurses Plus Home Health Care, the Park Forest Human Relations Commission, and the Park Forest Richton Park Community Chest. Of special note, she served on the Park Forest Bicentennial Committee and the Park Forest Freedom Hall Commission. Thanks to these committees, Park Forest was able to obtain grant funding, which the committee helped match to build Freedom Hall. Vivian was a vital part of that effort. Two of her other activities are worthy of special note. Vivian has worked closely with Marie Alfola to bring opera into the classrooms of Park Forest elementary schools. This program brings opera to young people in a manner that is both enjoyable and understandable. Vivian has also been a member of the Park Forest Art Fair Committee and coordinator of volunteers for the fair. It is important to understand that more than 100 volunteers are needed to make the fair possible. From volunteers to help artists unload in the morning, to bring them water all day, to staff the gallery desk, and to set up, serve, and clean up after the artist dinner. The fair could not succeed without Vivian's efforts. No job is too small for Vivian, such as serving ladies at the Hall of Fame induction, and no job is beyond her accomplishment, such as finding time to work as a student tutor and secretary of the Prairie State College Citizens Advisory Board. Vivian has served her church, her organizations, and her community, the Village of Park Forest, with no complaints and boundless energy since 1963. Marie Alfola, Janet Muchnick, and I are pleased to nominate Vivian to the Hall of Fame.
I don't know who Myrtle was talking about, but I'm really overwhelmed with this honor. And a sincere thanks to Myrtle Martin, Maria Apollo, and Janet Muchnick for providing the qualifying information that allowed the Park Forest Historical Society's committee to accept my nomination for the induction in the Hall of Fame. Marie was especially persistent before I would agree to be nominated. When I moved to Park Forest in 1963 and subsequently became a member of the Freedom Hall Bicentennial Committee in the early 1970s, I never envisioned that I would be on the stage of Freedom Hall to become an inductee in the Park Forest Hall of Fame. Living in Park Forest for 55 years afforded numerous opportunities for me and my son. Membership in cultural events, sports, social, civic organizations, and at Hope Lutheran Church until it closed in 2009, where I met many dear friends. I found that at times I created my own role as a volunteer, such as when I invented the role of telephone caller. I did not want to attend evening meetings because of the age of my son, so I found I could contribute by reminding members of the Freedom Hall Bicentennial Committee of their meetings. I enjoyed the opportunity to participate as a volunteer, so I responded to a newspaper article asking for volunteers for the Park Forest Art Fair. I contacted the chairman at that time to volunteer. I didn't plan Several years later, assuming the role of volunteer coordinator for more than 10 years. During that time, I have truly enjoyed working with Janet Muchnick as she showed so much enthusiasm about the art fair as plans evolve each year. Seeing the dedication and energy required for the opera in the classroom programs, I promised Maria I follow that I would assist her when I retired as an occupational therapist. It has been a delight working with her and seeing the children burst with pride when they don their costumes and perform. Myrtle Martin, a longtime friend and active civic volunteer, encouraged me to participate in several civic organizations. And knowing that volunteering can be also a learning experience, I became a member of the Park Forest Historical Society Board. I have enjoyed being a resident of Park Forest and its diversity. There have been numerous changes in the village over the years. However, the available services and conveniences meet my needs. I feel safe and content. Overall, I found that volunteering is a way to contribute to the vitality of the village and enrich your life. Try it if you haven't volunteered. You might like it. I'd like to thank my family and friends who are present today and those who are unable to attend but acknowledge this wonderful honor. Again, my sincere thanks to my nominators and the Park Forest Historical Society, who accepted me as an inductee to the Park Forest Hall of Fame. It is truly a notable, tremendous, and memorable recognition. Thank you.
'Good afternoon. I really know that Chuck Savy deserves a much more elegant presentation than I'm about to give him. Because when I saw the ad, the nomination, I said, Chuck, I wrote it up, no big deal. Then I saw his bio. So you'll have to read about all his accolades in your biography, because my interaction with Chuck has been through Main Street Nights and Freedom Hall. What impresses me with Chuck, when you see him at Main Street Nights, he is running around like crazy. He has got his hand in everything. If the weather's bad, he's checking his computer. Do we go inside? Do we stay outside? Are the vendors ready? Do we have tables? And then he makes his announcements, announces the shows, and he's done. He's still walking around making sure everything's correct. The same thing here. He's always making sure everything's done right. Do I have to climb the stairs? Are the lights on this? And then he strolls out just as calm. He is never too busy in the midst of doing all this, and this is what really impresses me. You can ask him something, he stops and talks to you. I've bugged him about things, and he always stops and is very gracious about it, and that's what really makes me admire him. He's just a very hardworking individual, and the Village of Park Forest is very lucky to have him, and he is truly deserving of this award. Thank you.
35 minutes. The keen observation of our police, men and women. Cliff, I'm afraid you have the book on me. So, but what a joy and pleasure to work with people like you, people like the inductees that are here. Truly, it's been my honor, blessing, and pleasure for 59 years to not necessarily work for 59 years, but let's backtrack to 59 years ago. And this Hall of Fame induction is truly a chance to reflect even though I'm still working. Some of the members are retired, and there's so much to do in the immediate and future. But in the past 2 months since I learned of this, I have reflected a bit on my life and realized the first blessing was being born to an extraordinary family with 8 other siblings and Eleanor and Richard Saby, and then to be born in Park Forest, born and raised in Park Forest in the year 1960. Life as a child in Park Forest, I can't imagine a better upbringing, and I can't imagine a more innovative, progressive, compassionate town to grow up. So in that context, the irony is that yesterday I saw a Facebook post about the Rec and Parks Department offering a teen job fair. And at about age 14 or 15, our house happened to be, the backyard was on Western Avenue, and I think Burger King Corporation realized if they built a Burger King on the west side of the east side of Western Avenue, I'd be there all the time helping their profit. So as a teenager, I had Burger King literally in view of my backyard, McDonald's, Ponderosa, so I needed a revenue stream. So I mowed lawns, shoveled driveways, but I also hooked up with Ridge Township, Pat Klein's Teen Employment Service Program. And some of you may remember that. But she would call me all the time before voicemail or cell phones, and I don't know how I got my messages based on my brothers and sisters' memory. But nonetheless, I would often get a call to mow a lawn, shovel somebody's driveway, and occasionally Pat would call and say, well, I have a job as a gas station attendant at Checker Gas. I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. And then it was Weebolts in the stocking area, and I just don't want to do that. I don't know why, but I didn't take those jobs. And finally she called and said, I have something I think you'll really be interested in. And it was working as a part-time custodian at Freedom Hall. I came and interviewed with Mary Goodwin, who would later be Mary McCall, and spent about an hour trained as a custodian, light tech, sound technician, and I took the job at Freedom Hall in December of 1977. I was 17 years old, but I had a true sense that this was a special building. And I think the reference to being on the commission to build Freedom Hall conveys that. It's still a beautiful, beautiful building. So I was honored to work here, and I knew to take special care of this place. They even paid $1 or so above minimum wage, so I felt like, hey, burn your money. Mary spent about 1 hour training me, and at that point handed me the keys, said turn off the lights, make sure the place is locked when you leave. And that was it. And I realized as I reflect, I've been up and down this catwalk stairs, cleaned the toilets thousands of times, but it was all about the people. And as an 18-year-old, I probably wouldn't have been buying tickets to come see John Houseman, Vincent Price, Kreskin, etc. The wonderful series of lectures we had here, the amazing performances. I was right in that light booth to take them all in. And it was so enriching. But even better were the people I met through the Arts Center and the civic organizations that were at Freedom Hall. Just about anybody who was engaged in the town came through these doors. So the friendships, the experiences are something I wouldn't trade with anybody, and that's been the blessing. So I spent about 10 years here, and then I had the opportunity to go over to Village Hall in the Rec and Parks Department, and I was able to participate in one way or another with established programs and events that had been created through the Parks Department. And I also had the liberty to create some programs if I had an interest. And why did I do that? Because I had a boss who had faith in me and who is the definition of a civic servant and one of the people who I am most indebted in my life. He's a Hall of Fame member, and he's here today. John Joyce, thank you for everything. Personally, what you've done for so many. I came back to Freedom Hall about 9 or 10 years ago, and this time in the role of being able to do the arts programming and Main Street Nights and a handful of other programs. And again, what an honor, and I wouldn't trade places with anybody. I'm having the time of my life doing what I'm doing. I owe it all to the people I get to serve, interact with. We have the most tremendous staff. The departments have been amazing over the decades, police, public works, economic development. It's truly an extraordinary place to work. And Freedom Hall is still a special, magical place to be. It's my honor. I hope, someday I'm going to have to turn those keys back in and turn off the lights for the last time. But in the meantime, just to put on my promoter's hat here, in less than 48 hours, we have a show, and it's an extraordinary show. It's almost sold out, but this Friday, we have 2 former Jersey boys, backed by a wonderful band of top-notch musicians from Chicago, and that show's not sold out. So help us sell some tickets. That's how it was done when I was here as a young guy. The community came together and they came to Freedom Hall for shows, but there's still so much to do, and I'm honored to be able to do that for you. Jojo, you're one of those people that bring joy to me, believe it or not. And, we got Main Street Nights in the book, Park Forest Historical Society. Thank you for all you do for the town, and just thank you to all of you. You've lifted me up, you've made this life worth living, and we're here in an extraordinary place and time, so thank you.
I can remember when he was 12 years old and he would hang around the construction site of Freedom Hall. And then one day I came over here and he was shoveling the snow out there. And Mary Goodwin had just said, if you're going to hang around, here's something to do. I think we just have seen the youngest member of the Hall of Fame. Now we have a couple who are going to be presented by another couple, Jean and Beth.
Good afternoon. My name is Gene Schmithkins Jr. And on behalf of my sisters and brothers, we are most grateful to the Park Forest Historical Society for recognizing what we already knew, that our parents are Hall of Famers. We know this is true because when we posted this on Facebook, we got a lot of responses saying, yes, they are Hall of Famers, so if it's on Facebook, it's obviously true. But if we recognize loving parents, there's hundreds of loving parents here in this community. It's an awesome place to grow up. I learned that when I was a junior in college. I was a political science sociology major, 2 of the most worthless majors in the history of higher education. But Park Forest had like an entire chapter in my urban sociology textbook about what a remarkable place it was. So I think growing up we didn't really appreciate what we had. But anyway. So before I speak directly about my mother's accomplishments as a member of this community, I'd like to just highlight a few things about my parents. First, you should know, it's their 63rd wedding anniversary. So this is really kind of a pretty cool present for them. We don't have to get them anything. Second, you should understand that my parents have always been huge supporters of this community. It was 60 years ago, about this time that they moved here, They moved here from St. Louis, Missouri, and yes, they're still Cardinal fans, as are all of my siblings. We went to sleep every night on listening to Jack Buck and Harry Carey on their RCA Zenith console stereo. Pulled in KMOX like it was there, and we listened to Jack Buck and Harry Carey and Bob Gibson, and it was awesome. But they moved here leaving all their family, not knowing anybody in this community. We moved into 69 Indianwood, back in the co-ops right on the corner of Western Avenue and Indianwood. Dad's job was with the Western Pacific Railroad, and soon Mom was working in St. James Hospital, which is where 4 of my sisters and my youngest brother were born. So this marks their 60th year here as members of this community. And upon arriving in Park Forest, they immediately became involved. Everything they did as a team. Among the things I remember most was our house always had visitors. We seemed to be a landing spot for a variety of people. Even as we were young growing up, they pioneered the religion program for high school students, so it seemed like every Wednesday night we'd have a bunch of high school kids, and we were like, wow, they're so old. And we'd kind of like sit in the kitchen and listen to what they were talking about and try to steal some of the snacks that they would serve. So they pioneered those in-home meetings. And then each of us had friends that somehow found our way to Mantua Street for weekends, holidays, or just, hey, can John stay for dinner? Sure, just one more won't make any difference anyway. They hosted singers from Up With People. They welcomed any of our friends of ours from college who were too far away to go home. They stayed at our place. And I remember one particular friend of mine from college who lived in a really rough area in Chicago. And he'd come out to visit us on the weekends. And he'd stay for like 2 weeks. I'd get up and go to work, and Cliff would still be there. But, you know, there was never any question. No one ever said anything. They just stayed as they needed. We're introducing our parents individually because each in their own way has served this community in such a way as to make their admission into the Hall of Fame appropriate. However, as I said earlier, what they did together, and what they're being recognized for is what they did together. But first, let me highlight what my mom did on her own, which illustrates her commitment to this community. She was very active in our lives growing up. She was a scout leader for both the Cub Scouts, and I recall the Girl Scouts because if she did something for the boys, she always did it for the girls. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I was the oldest, so I was pretty much oblivious to everything that was going on around me. Her career as a nurse found her moving from St. James Hospital to the village as a public health nurse, making home visits throughout the community. And when my baby sister started school, Mom went to work as a school nurse for School District 163 and visited pretty much those of you that went to school in 163 might have seen my mom because she pretty much worked in every one of the schools at one time or another. When the requirements to be a school nurse changed, and she was required to obtain a bachelor's degree in addition to her RN designation. And despite having several children at home, because some of us had already left to go to college on our own, she began taking night classes to complete the requirements for a bachelor's degree. So in addition to being active as a school nurse, Mom chaperoned a number of trips for all of us throughout our education. She finally stopped as we all went to college because we asked her not to come with us. Mom also used her skills as a seamstress in addition to making Easter outfits for all my sisters. She made costumes for school activities and Halloween costumes for kids in the neighborhood. Perhaps the most active involvement, and I believe the thing for which they're most proud, is their work in the various capacities at St. Irenaeus. She's been active as a lector for a number of years. She continues in that capacity today. And together with Dad, they were leaders of the religious education and liturgy committees. She's also been involved in the community in other ways. She's worked at the food bank, has volunteered at Tallgrass, and has provided non-judgmental listening ears to counsel's friends and, of course, her children. Well, actually, mostly the friends. She kind of seems to have an opinion when it comes to us, but I guess she can. Anyway, we're humbled that you have recognized our mother and very appreciative of the honor you have chosen to bestow upon her. And we're grateful that all of my siblings are here to join us.
I'm here to introduce my father, Gene Schmickens, to the Hall of Fame. In 1959, my parents embarked on a journey away from their hometown of St. Louis, where they spent the first 25 years of their lives. They discovered this fairly new, well-planned community and became involved without hesitation. They first turned to the vibrant church community of St. Irenaeus, and as my brother mentioned, as a team, served as leaders of the high school religious education program and liturgy team. During the time they were in charge of the high school program, they helped to plan an interfaith gathering, which at the time was a groundbreaking. This gathering was attended by the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was the keynote speaker. Included in the topics he discussed was the growing civil rights movement. Individually, my dad has been a lector at St. Irenaeus for as long as I can remember, and was a volunteer with the special religious education program for over 10 years. His dedication to this program earned him the Good Egg Award from the village in 2002. In addition to his service to the church community, my dad's contributions to the Park Forest community are as equally important to him. For 60 years, he has proudly called Park Forest his home and has taken great pride in giving back to the community that he so dearly loves. He became involved with the Tallgrass Arts Association and served as a member of the Board of Directors as well as treasurer. He also recruited and trained docents to work in the gallery. Not only did he coach boys baseball, but he chaperoned numerous school trips from elementary school through high school. On one occasion, he and my mom drove a station wagon full of Richie's cheerleaders to the first state to a basketball tournament in downstate. Along the way, he stopped in Vandalia, where the first state capitol was located, to give them a little history lesson. There was rarely a trip that we took that didn't include a piece of history. My dad, excuse me, my throat is dry, because I'm nervous. My dad has also contributed to Park Forest in the manner in which he has so meticulously cared for his home. His colorful garden has earned him several beautification awards, and he takes pride in the work he has done inside as well. In reflecting on all the contributions my parents have made to the village of Park Forest, it amazes me that they were willing to give so generously and humbly while both working full-time and raising a family of 8 children. Their pride and loyalty to Park Forest is unmatched, and they continue to be involved in the community to this day. On behalf of my brothers and sisters, we would like to thank the Park Forest Historical Society for honoring my parents with this recognition of their commitment to this community. They have been an inspiration to each of their children and have instilled in us a love and appreciation for our hometown. Their activism sparked a desire in all of us to continue the tradition of giving back to our own communities. So, I am very proud to be able to present to you my daddy, Eugene Paul Schmickens Sr.
We've raised 8 children in this village, and you've heard a lot about what a great place it was to raise children. But one thing that I'm really proud of is I have no idea where the Park Forest Police Station is. Shortly after we received the notice that we were chosen to be members of the Park Forest Hall of Fame, I sent a friend of mine a text message. And after I had come to the end, I let my humility guard down and told him that Mary and I had been chosen to be members of the Park Forest Historical Society's Hall of Fame. I had hardly moved my finger from the send click when I got an email back, a text message back. And it was very, very simple. He said, "For what?" Exclamation point. So what I had to do was somehow or other tell him what the "for what" was. And I was just thinking, maybe many of you people have had this experience, the historical things that you lived through. And in my memory, it was Pearl Harbor. I never knew exactly what date it was, but I know that one. And I always knew who I was with and what happened. The next one was the death of President Roosevelt. That's Franklin Roosevelt. And also, I remember the end of World War II. What a joyful day that was. So I started to think of things that happened in Park Forest that we were involved in. And there were many of them, and I know you people who have done a lot of volunteering can think back of specific instances that really made you feel good. And one of the instances that I remember the most took place just a few yards from here in Central Park. I had attended a event of the 50th anniversary of Park Forest. And I was walking down the path, someone called out my name. And I turned around and I saw this fine-looking young fellow, and he came up to me and he said, "Mr. Schmidtkins, I want to thank you for the way you coached our boys' baseball team." He said, "You were always kind and patient." You heard that right. And when we succeeded, you praised us. And when we didn't, you encouraged us to get back into the game and do the best you could. And then he said, "I want you to know that I use your method of coaching when I coach my boys' baseball teams." And that was just one of the things that I'm sure all of you have witnessed, and I'll never forget. And I'd like to end this by putting into context what we're talking about. It's from the poet William Wordsworth. And he said, "The best portions of our lives are the little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love." I'd like to thank everyone for this award. I will treasure it for a long time, I hope.
What an act to have to follow. I do want you to know that I have a sense of humor. However, I did not bring it with me today. Also, some of this may be a little redundant. While Gene was looking for a place to bring his family, his wife and his 2 kids, after his transfer from St. Louis to Chicago, it was suggested that he visit Park Forest, where one of his co-workers lived. I told you I didn't bring my sense of humor. Well, riding through Park Forest, he liked what he saw and decided this was where he was going to raise his family. Good choice, honey. 60 years ago, we moved into a townhouse on Indianwood, and my world expanded. In our court, there were people from other countries, states, religious denominations, and occupations. What an educational experience that was for me. Park Forest was then, and now continues to be, a wonderful place to live. I want to thank the Historical Society for this honor. Also for having to make Park Forest a special place to live in. I want to thank the parishioners of St. Irenaeus Faith Community, the many teachers who helped form our children's lives, and persons responsible for the many cultural, educational, and recreational programs that were and continue to be available in Park Forest. Many of the programs we were active in, Dean and I shared, but there were some areas where we had different interests. So I also want to thank him for his support in whatever I chose to engage in. Once again, thank you to the Park Forest Historical Society for the honor of this induction to the Hall of Fame. But I'm a woman and I can be.
I know Mary had me sitting back there remembering too. And now, one of our own, Jay Nickel, will introduce the next nominated event.
And our next nominee is our organization. The organization is nominated by the Park Forest Historical Society Board. The Kiwanis Club of Park Forest has served children of the world for nearly 70 years. Fundraising supports causes nearby and across the globe through annual Peanut and Pancake Days since 1952. Projects to improve life locally have included bleachers, playground equipment, park benches and tables, dinners for honor students, contributions to American Field Service, and donations and help for this society. I think they provided some of our first shelving for the archive at the library. Beneficiaries have included Scout Troops, Rich Township Pantry, PADS, Family Service Center, the Village Nurses, and Boys and Girls Sports. Key clubs of Rich Township School District 227 mentor students in community service. And one of their community services was helping us move furniture in and out of storage and from one unit to another, which happened way too often. Kiwanis started the Village Beautification Program and provided the early awards. A committee headed by Earl Wade planted over 350 trees and flower beds around schools. Established September 15, 1951, the club added the first woman member in 1990. October 1952 saw the first Pancake Day and the Pankatron, spell it how you will, designed by Louis Alson and Bill Clyde Alson and Earl Wade, premiering in 1956. Burners and conveyor belts were added over the years. Organizations have pitched in to help Pancake Day become an effective fundraiser and a village tradition. And I'd also like to say several of our early founders of the Historical Society were Kiwanis Club members, and especially Ray Janata, who designed the pin, and this is the image of the pin. And that's a Reginata. I still have the original hand drawing that he did. And so we certainly always heard about Key Club and Kiwanis and the good that they did. And we had also John North was an early member, very involved in beginning the society. So I'm very proud to nominate the Kiwanis Club to be inducted.
Accepting is Terry Townsend, should I say oldest, longest. She came from Galena today to be with us, and Jean Cheney, who is the current president of Kiwanis.
You know, wait a minute, let me just say something. Let me say something first. Terry was with our Kiwanis for the last 24 years. Would have been 25 this year, but last July they had to move to Galena because George, dearly beloved George, her husband, was very sick, and ended up, he died 6 weeks later after they moved there. Otherwise, she'd be celebrating 25 or silver anniversary with our Kiwanis Club this year. I joined somewhere around 10 years ago. I was with it about a year when they asked me to be president, and without her, I would have never done it. This gal knows everything, which I'm
Well, it's truly a deep honor for me to be able to accept the award for the Kiwanis Club of Park Forest, and Jean is being very humble because she does a lot to keep this club together, and it was my passion. And it was a bittersweet moment for me the last few months when we had to leave Park Forest after we're right behind the Schmidtkins. We moved in July of 1960, and after 58 years of being in the same home, we had to sell our home, and we moved near our daughter Pam, who's in the audience with my sister still, to Galena to be near family. And unfortunately, my husband didn't make it, and he passed away in August. But I always had a passion for Kiwanis because our motto is to serving the children of the world, and we continue to do it in many, many ways. And I just couldn't give up Kiwanis after leaving Park Forest, so I am a member of the Galena Kiwanis Club. I'm continuing my service to them. I do want to thank the Park Forest Historical Society. George and I had the honor of receiving this award in 2007. And before I leave, being that George can't be here, in his memory I would like to say these few words. I thought of you today. That is nothing new. I thought about you yesterday and the days before that too. I think of you in silence. I often speak your name. All I have are memories and your picture in a frame. Your memory is our keepsake from which I'll never part. God has you in his arms. I had you in my heart. Love, Terry.
So why don't we all stand and give a big round of applause. Before we adjourn for refreshments, I would like to once again ask Jane Nichols to speak on behalf of the Historical Society.
Thank you, Teresa. And I don't want to burst your bubble, Chuck, but in 2007, I was the youngest. Maybe older than you, but I was the youngest then. And then Valerie Nicholson bumped me in 2008, and she remains the youngest. So I'd love to see more young people getting nominated. The Park Forest Historical Society is in its 34th year of saving your history, and it has been 38 years since the archive was started by the library. On this 25th anniversary, we need to give credit to Chuck Gold for suggesting the Hall of Fame, and to a large committee of people, including myself, Maggie Olson, Henry Deach, Ron McLeod, Bo Lawrence, Ray Janata, and more, who ironed out the details and guidelines, and to Therese, Jane Steinmetz, Gretchen Falk, and Vivian Brunel, and Jerry Schnee, who have worked through the years to keep it going and to make it an honored tradition in Park Forest history. I don't think even when we started with the first one in 1989, and it took 5 years to get to an annual one, that we ever thought we'd be here 25 years later. The 1950s Park Forest House Museum, which has existed now for 20 years, has been in St. Mary's Catholic Church for almost 4. We represent life, or our earliest residents from 1948 to 53, pre-rock and roll, and tell the story of how Park Forest was planned and settled. Visit the museum, volunteer to help us with it. We need docents. I don't even know if we'll be open every time we're supposed to this month. That's how bad it is. So, the Park Forest Public Library Board has once again made a donation of half the archive office rent to help us support the archival collection created with taxpayer funds originally. We thank them for that $1,350 and for their commitment to help the society be sure the public has access to Park Forest's unique history. The local history file cabinets, scrapbooks, and oral histories are now at the museum. Be sure to see the exhibit of Kiwanis articles in the lobby. They are an example of what can be found in the 270-plus subject files in the museum. And there's only 65, 70 odd boxes more and about 7 more file cabinets down the hall. We have a display on the 70th anniversary of Park Forest, which we've been marking for 3 years. Late August 2018 was the 70th anniversary of the first move-ins. February 1st, 2019 marked the 70th anniversary of incorporation. That exhibit will run through mid-July at least. It's currently Vintage Easter over there. It looks like the 4th of July parade will have a 70th anniversary theme. Anne Marie Leofanti has taught the Park Forest History Unit, developed by retired teachers and our own Suzanne Brown. She's taught that unit to 3rd and 4th graders at 2 schools so far this year to about 180 students. On May 3rd, I will be actively participating in a small conference at GSU called History at Risk, aimed at collections in this region, to consider the possibility of a regional archives at GSU, and to give some introduction to care of collections, sources of information, and disaster planning. See me if you'd be interested in attending. On May 19th, we'll hold an ice cream social in appreciation of our members and volunteers. Our program will be former Park Forest resident Warren Brown as Mark Twain. Free and open to the public, this will be held in Park Forest Village Hall. And he's wonderful if you haven't seen him. So I was delighted to find out he was available. The board is seriously considering offering a lifetime membership in the society at about $200. This is not meant to discourage those who give more each year. But watch for that in our fall membership drive. And speak to me or Mike Gans if this sounds interesting to you. And this leads me to, we still need active volunteers and board members. Overall, we need more public involvement in our work and programming if we are to continue doing it. Historical societies and longtime volunteers do stop. I keep saying that. It keeps being true. And that is one of the ways many collections in the south suburbs and all across the country are history at risk. We ask our inductees to remain on stage for some group photographs. All members of the Hall of Fame should come to the stage along the side path for our annual group photograph. We invite friends and relatives to enjoy the refreshments and our wonderful musicians in the lobby. To the class of 2019, thank you for your considerable time and effort to make Park Forest a special place to live. Nominations for next year's Hall of Fame will be open October 1st through the end of December. Look to your left and look to your right. Someone sitting near you should be nominated. Thank you for coming.